Okay, so today I'm going to be discussing the trip to London that occurred on the 26th of November 2019 for our visual effects third year project. We had to visit sort of some visual effects companies or post-production houses to see how the industry works to get a better insight on potentially gaining jobs. So before we all went down to London on this trip from Derby, I myself, Billy Marshall, organised the train fares with our program leader, Stuart Poynton, as well as emailed some visual effects companies to try and gain sort of both a contact and somewhere we could go visit for the day. So I contacted Lola and Framestore, I believe, and unfortunately during this time period, Lola was busy and didn't receive my email until very later on, which we got confirmation of, and then invited to visit potentially next year. So that's something to look into. But Framestore was happy to have us on the 26th, which I organised via LinkedIn and email. Over LinkedIn, I was contacted by someone from HR from Framestore, which was very exciting, as this was sort of my first experience with speaking to someone from the industry. And then she provided me with a email address that I could email a member of Framestore to organise a date to go down and visit and a time. So this was very exciting, as it was sort of my first professional interaction, as well as now gaining a connection on LinkedIn and already having an established sort of conversation might allow me to try and gain some further insight or potentially work at trying to get job opportunities with Framestore. Moving on from this, the actual trip itself was amazing. So myself, Matt Allinson, Nabil Leela, Jack Jones, and Luke Northridge, group of five, all went down to London on the 26th, as mentioned. We arrived in London at about 10 past 11, and we had our first meeting at 12, I believe, with Johnny Grew from Coffee and TV. Matt Allinson had organised this part of the visit as he was in contact with Johnny prior and set up a date and time where we should meet each other. And yeah, so once we'd gone through all of that process of getting to London and getting on the tube and finding our way through London, we went to Coffee and TV. And besides the little mishap of getting lost on getting there, we made it in time. We were a bit early even, and went in and had a look around the studio. So with Coffee and TV, I was actually very impressed. It was not what I was expecting at all. So Coffee and TV are a smaller post-production house that mainly deal with television and adverts, hence the name Coffee and TV. Um, so they do sort of visual effects for like TV adverts. Like there was a Dreams advert that they did the like a galaxy effect for, as well as some talking horses for a certain advert. It was a betting advert, I believe. What was amazing about going to Coffee and TV is just it wasn't what I thought a post production house would be like at all. Because obviously it was a smaller post production house. They had sort of two layers. They had a downstairs and upstairs. Upstairs was sort of where all of the CG artists were and like the compositors and stuff. So that's where my main interest was. But I was just impressed to see that their offices looked more of like an apartment space essentially, even though it was in like a commercial block. It was just interesting to see how sort of how chill all of the people working there were, as well as sort of you get the vibe when you walked in that it was sort of a laid back place where everyone could be themselves, do what they want to do. Obviously they get the work done, but they all seem like a small sort of family instead of like just work colleagues, which is really nice. The I believe like the benefit of working in a smaller sort of office or post production house would be sort of sense of bonding between you all, as you obviously all know each other very well and you know what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are because you know everyone. So there's a lot of chance to like personal improvement by asking someone to help you, and there's sort of no fear of having to go and ask someone what to do because like they all know each other. So Johnny showed us around the offices as I mentioned, and they were mainly using Maya at the moment as well as After Effects, which are two programs I've worked with. This was obviously the CG aspects, which is what I paid attention to the most. But I was also interested to see sort of how each of their offices could be transformed essentially into a space for clients and client meetings, which is really cool, as well as having separate sections for like compositing and color correcting. And even though there was only like one or two color correctors or compositors compared to like the five or six CG artists, it was still really impressive to see that sort of everyone was valued as equal and each part of their job made something come together which worked. So yeah, we had lunch there. We watched some of their show reels, which I was really impressed with. As I mentioned, they showed us the sort of stuff they'd done for adverts, so like the dreams thing. And then we moved on to talk to the CG artists, which were using Maya at the time, sort of animating a fly, I believe, as well as showing us a gorilla that one of them had made in, I think it was not Substance Painter, but in a 3D package, and then how we textured it in Substance Painter to sort of make a low resolution texture while retaining all of the detail, which was really cool. It sort of showed me the how professional or sort of how far you can take software packages when you're using it in the industry. Is like I'd never use Maya for animation or anything like that because I view it as a sort of modeling program because it's not one of my strengths. Whereas none of them used Houdini, and they did a lot of simulation in Maya, which I mean, it was really impressive to see how far they could take simulation in Maya. Because in my opinion, Houdini is just the superior program for simulation. But they were proving me wrong. It basically shows that if you know your software package well enough, you can basically do anything with it. So that was really cool. After this, we went for sort of a drink and a chat with Johnny, just to sort of talk about the industry a bit more casually instead of being in the professional environment, which is really cool. It's nice to know that sort of they all like socializing and going to chill. There's like a pub very close to where they work, so I assume they all go for like lunch and stuff or get a drink or stuff together quite regularly. So that's nice. It's sort of a team building without having to actually be in a specific team building session, which is really good. So yeah. After that, we moved on to Framestore. But before I talk about that, I just want to sort of recap what I was saying about Coffee and TV. Is I think it was a really impressive place. I think with the small team that they have in the small space, they've really made the most of it, and it's really amazing. I would, I mean, in my opinion, I'd really like the chance to at least go and visit again, or potentially try and get some form of work experience, which I've emailed Johnny to just thank him for the trip and potentially try and gain gain some work experience after. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was really amazing. I just, I think it would be better for me personally to work in this environment where it's like small team that all sort of knows each other because this semester I feel like I've come into my own of being like able to lead a team as I was team leader this semester as well as sort of like divvy up jobs and stuff. But it was really nice being able to sort of like work closely with each member of the team because I knew them all and we could have a bit of banter while we were working and sort of yeah, I just want to work in a place where it feels friendly as well as you're doing something amazing. So yeah, that was my experience on Coffee and TV. 10 out of 10 for me. Really want to go again. Moving on for the day, we went to visit Framestore straight after we had a drink with Johnny. We had this organised for 3, so we had to again get on the tube, get there, which was sort of, it was an interesting experience because this was the first time I went to London personally. So I've never really been on anything like the tube. I've just been on normal trains. But yeah, it was fine. I think I could become accustomed to that sort of way of life. It's just a bit more hectic than Derby, for example, but that's what you can expect for like the biggest city in the country. So yeah, we got to Framestore and there was already a massive difference on like what you saw. So Framestore shared the office space they were with, but it was also like at least 10 times as big as Coffee and TV. So they had like a full proper reception that was bigger than my house, as well as sort of multiple layers and a VR setup and stuff that I could see just from like the waiting room. So the difference between Framestore and Coffee and TV, besides the size, was like the confidentiality of it all. Obviously, Coffee and TV being a smaller company, not working on anything like too major, they could sort of openly show us what they were doing, and like their own personal projects, whereas Framestore, we had to fill in like confidentiality reports and stuff like that to make sure we wouldn't leak anything that we saw, but we didn't really see anything anyway, so nothing to worry about. I understand that this is for security and stuff, but it kind of put a whole damper on the visit experience as we didn't really see anything. So obviously I was the contact for Framestore. So that was nice, sort of knowing who I was going to meet, or so I thought. We ended up having a meeting with someone completely different to who I contacted, which I contacted a lady, well, she contacted me, a lady called Annabelle Barlow. So I was under the assumption that I was going to have a meeting with her, with the rest of the group, but this wasn't true. So that was a bit disorientating because it felt less personal, as it was just someone else that was basically just delegated a job to come and talk with a bunch of students and then go back to whatever they were doing. So we were escorted upstairs into a conference room and we saw absolutely no VFX, which is upsetting. But again, I understand for the confidentiality and all that. But it would have been nice to sort of see what they were doing, or at least have a setup sort of showing like what programs they use. I had like maybe a personal project, but wasn't the case. We had a meeting in this conference room where they showed us their show reels, which were very similar. They showed us 4 or 5 show reels, and then we had time for Q&As, and that was probably the most useful part of the entire session, as we sort of asked about the size of teams, how delegation of jobs work, sort of like, and how many, like, how long you get per shot, do you work on a shot on your own, stuff like that. So asking the questions like that in perspective to a bigger company um, offered a lot, as it's sort of obviously my initial intentions for visual effects was to aspire to sort of make a really big visual effects that I could put in a movie and people be like, wow, that was amazing, and then I want to be able to say, that's what I made. So it was cool seeing all the big budget things they worked on, like Avengers and upcoming films, as they're mostly known for like their character, like a creature animation, that's the one, or like just how their creatures look, which honestly was very truly impressive. Compared to the sort of coffee and TV experience, Framestore worked completely differently. They all had little teams that were all sort of sectioned off and delegated into each other. They all sort of linked in unison to sort of a bigger team that would produce an effect or something of that variety. But it all seemed like you were kind of like a cog in a machine in comparison to coffee and TV, as there is definitely no way everyone in Framestore knows each other, even in that one building, because they have multiple sort of offices. Because there was just so many people per floor, which we saw on the way in and out. There's like probably thousands of people working on one floor, so you only know the people in your team, and that was about it. So kind of disheartening. But yeah, the experience overall was okay. The Q&A was definitely the most helpful part, sort of learning about Framestore, what they do, and how bigger companies operate. Um, yeah. So after this, we planned to go to sort of the National History Museum and stuff, but we decided that in the end we were gonna sort of contact Johnny Grew again from Coffee and TV and have another talk with him. So that was really cool. Just before I move on to that, the Framestore visit, it showed me that maybe I want to start in a visual effects company that's smaller until I can sort of say I'm like a until I could apply for the role of like a visual effects supervisor or something of that variety. Because I want to sort of, as well as produce cool effects that I'm proud of, I want to enjoy working where I work and have fun doing it. I want to do visual effects because it's something that I have as a passion, and I don't want to feel like I'm just a cog in a machine that makes a cool result, but it's sort of the cost of enjoyment. So I think potentially applying for smaller roles or just companies that are smaller initially would be beneficial to me, until I can work my way up to having a proper say in bigger companies from like just having experience. Okay, moving on to the sort of meeting with Johnny again. We again just had another drink with him at the same pub. We went back to the Coffee and TV offices and the pub next to there, and just discuss sort of like further things about the industry and his personal experiences and journeys that he'd been through getting to where he is, which was just really cool. Like I said, it was like a more personal experience. I felt like we were fully sort of connecting and bonding with Johnny in comparison to the people at Framestore, which I can't even remember their names apart from the contact, because it just felt sort of that stage and like they were forced to do it because it looked good for the company, and then we were just gone and they'd never think of us again. So yeah, not much more to say on the meeting with Johnny. We just, like I mentioned, spoke about the industry and his life experiences, which is cool, and sort of showed me that I think I'm doing quite well for the level that I'm at, because he used to like have to deal with a lot worse equipment and software and stuff like that to what we've got access to now. And yeah, I at the end of the trip really, we like I said, we are going to plan to go to the National History Museum as something else to do, and we were initially supposed to meet with three visual effects companies, but myself and Matt could only organise visiting the two that we saw, and the other students unfortunately couldn't get in contact with anyone else either. So yeah, we just went home after that. We grabbed some food and got the train back. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable experience going down to London, and it sort of got rid of my stigma of thinking that London's a grim and gritty place that like no one sort of like likes each other down there, and it's super packed and busy. And yes, it is busy, but it's also a really pretty place. As you can see a screenshot of one of the well, just well, a picture of something. It's, English. I took a picture of London, which when I was down there, which is really pretty, as well as taking some pictures with Johnny and just like the rest of the team, which you can see in this blog. But yeah, it was a really fun experience. I'd love to go again, or at least sort of meet with other companies. Got rid of my stigma about London, and it's allowed me to gain a few contacts, as well as sort of opening my eyes about what the industry could be like for me. So, last thing, the one of the more useful things that Framestore did mention was a potential of work experience or an internship even over summer. They mentioned how all the big companies do it, so Framestore and like Double Negative and stuff. So the sort of applications for that open in spring this year, 2020. So I'm going to try and get a new show reel together by then and apply for these internships, because they pay you in London as well as letting you live there, and sort of you'll actually get to work in that company making something for yourself as well as working on shots for like a film. So that's something I'm excited for, and hopefully will get a chance to apply for and potentially gain a job, because I don't see why not. My work this year, in my opinion, is the best I've made. Obviously, I'm going up against every other visual effects person in the country, but got as good a chance as any. So yeah, that was my account of the London trip. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for listening to it.